All right, welcome to the February 8th, 2016 St. Louis Park School Board meeting. Prior to this meeting, we had a 5:30 Human Rights Commission and Park and Rec interview meeting, as well as a 6 o'clock special meeting to do a preliminary policy discussion on gender identity. The agenda for tonight is the call to order, then the approval of the agenda, superintendent's report. The discussion items include strategic plan, mid-year update, 2015-16 budget amendments, intermediate district 287 updates, policy development on second reading on policy 214, out-of-state travel for school board, and policy 412, expense reimbursement. We have a first reading policy development on policy 419, tobacco-free environment. The action agenda includes the second reading of policy 214, the out-of-state travel, and 412, expense reimbursement, the approval of the 2015-16 budget amendments, and then approval of Community Education Advisory Council reappointments, communications and transmittals, and adjournment to finish off. I will entertain a motion to approve this agenda.
Second.
Moved by Nancy, seconded by Jim. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the agenda say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 7-0. We have an agenda. Superintendent's reports.
I'll do it as
Within the superintendent's report, we are going to do a spotlight. We deemed this was the most appropriate point in the evening to do it.
Thank you. I'm going to do part of my superintendent report from up here and then the rest of it from back at my table. But at the beginning, I want to recognize the school board, because next week is School Board Appreciation Week, February 15th through the 19th. And our school board is modest, and they will not give themselves a lot of attention during this week, so I'm going to do it for them. For the people that are watching at home, when you see a school board member next week or over the next month or so, pat them on the back and thank them, because they work many, many hours for the young people of St. Louis Park, do lots of good work, participate in deep thought about important topics, and make very important decisions that really are going to impact the students and the school district that are in the school district today and the students that are in the school district in the future. And people don't realize the amount of learning that board members undergo, the amount of hours that they work, and the feedback that they get from the community and pass on to me and to others in the school district. So I just want to take a moment to thank the board members on behalf of the community. And I'm going to call you up here. We're going to shake your hands, give you a certificate, and take your picture, just like we do for other spotlights. Sincerely, from me to you and from the community to you, thank you for everything that you do. We'll start with Joe Tatalovich, our school board chair. Thank you, Joe. Jim Yarosh, our school board vice chair. Karen Waters, our school board clerk. Ken Morrison, school board treasurer. Nancy Gores, school board director. Bruce Richardson, school board director. Jim Benke, School Board Director. Thank you again to our school board members. I can tell you as superintendent, I realize how fortunate I am to work with such a great board and such well-meaning, caring, and hardworking people. So thank you to all of them.
Rob, if you could stand by Jim. Come on in. And if everybody shows me their certificates. This is a little bit like taking pictures of students. Ken, I can't see you.
Oh, that was intentional.
If you can see me, I can see you. Okay, great, thanks. Thank you, Sarah. Very kind.
And then I will take this opportunity to share a few other things, actually 3 interesting topics. First of all, the boys cross-country ski team once again qualified for the state tournament this year. They're heading off on Wednesday, I believe, to the state competition. This is the 3rd year in a row the boys cross-country ski team has been headed to the state tournament, so congratulations to them. They won the conference championship and finished 2nd in the section, which qualified them for state. So congratulations to the boys cross-country ski team. We have quite a dynasty of skiers. Second thing I wanted to mention is that we have some visitors from Germany the next 2 weeks at the high school. They landed this weekend. I met them early this morning with our high school principal, Scott Myers. About 20 German students who are part of an exchange program, so our students visit them when we go on trips to Germany, and they come here now for the 2nd year in a row. It was fun to meet them this morning. They're going ice fishing tomorrow, I've been told, on Lake Minnetonka. So we wish them good luck. And of course, the Mall of America is on the list and all kinds of other things. They're staying with families here in St. Louis Park while they're here in town, and that's really going to be fun for them. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is really unique. Tomorrow night, before the boys' basketball game with Benilde, Bob Stein, former alumni from the mid-1960s, is going to be here. He played football for the University of Minnesota in the late 60s, was an All-American, and went to the Rose Bowl, and then had a great career, ended up being the president of the Minnesota Timberwolves basketball team when they first started out. But one of his claims to fame was that he played in a Super Bowl for the Kansas City Chiefs when they beat the Minnesota Vikings. Anybody that played in a Super Bowl, because this is the 50th anniversary of the Super Bowl, was given a golden football to award to their high school that they came from. And he has a golden football. So he's coming here tomorrow night at 7 o'clock to give the football to St. Louis Park High School in his name. And that'll be a really fun event to get to see him. I've not met him before, so it'll be fun to meet him and see him award the football to St. Louis Park. So good news stories this week.
Thank you, Superintendent Mets. I did Google him the other day because of this, and yes, his career is amazing, not just the football, but beyond that, and all the things that he did as an attorney and with the Timberwolves as well. It's pretty amazing. The first discussion item we have tonight will be presented by Sara Thompson, our Director of Communications, and it is the Strategic Plan Mid-Year Update.
Good evening again, board members. I'm going to share a brief mid-year strategic plan update. Sara Thompson is here with me, and then we'll try to answer your questions. You'll remember that last year we went through a extensive strategic planning process. There were many days and nights of work put together to create our next and current 5-year strategic plan. We are now halfway through the first year. So we wanted to take a few minutes just to tell you about the process, what's been done, and what's coming next. First of all, a reminder of our mission statement. As a caring, diverse community with a tradition of putting its children first, we will ensure all students attain their highest level of achievement, prepare all students to contribute to society, offer high-quality opportunities for lifelong learning, provide multiple pathways to excellence, challenge all learners to meet high standards, and provide a safe and nurturing environment that energizes and enhances the spirit. That last sentence was added last year for the first time, and I love it because it's really what St. Louis Park is all about, that every student should feel safe and be nurtured, energized, and enhanced. The core team also agreed to a set of core values that we go back and look at from time to time, and these are really being used. When we struggle with almost anything, I take a minute and look back at these core values and say, are we really living up to these core values? Are we really being who we strive to be? And these are real, living core values. We also identified 3 strategic delimiters, things that we agreed not to do, and I bolded one of them because it's a real experience for me on a regular basis. We will not allow past practice to limit the consideration of new ideas. The teams that are working in this strategic planning process are really living up to this. More than any year since I've been in St. Louis Park, people are telling me, we're not going to do it that way again. We can't do it the same way we've always done it. We need to do it a different way this time. And it challenges me sometimes because sometimes people come to me and say, I'm not doing it that way again. And then I have to go back to the strategic plan and ground myself and realize they're doing exactly what we're asking them to do. So I appreciate the courage of people and the sincerity of really living this. We were focusing on 2 of the strategies in particular this year. The first one has to do with teaching and learning. Grounded in our belief that all students can achieve our mission, we will continually evaluate and systemically implement student outcomes by aligning instruction, curriculum, and assessment in a culturally relevant manner. A lot of words there that are really important. And there are specifically 2 results that we're working on this year from Strategy 1. Result number 2 is on the list for this year. We will utilize an implementation plan intended to increase the capacity of educators to measure learner knowledge and skills, align culturally relevant instructional practices, and ensure all achieve. So here we're working on increasing the capacity of educators, so it's talking about professional development, aligning, which is one of my favorite words, instructional practices, and student outcomes. The other result from Strategy 1 was Result 4. We continually use evidence of student achievement, specifically focusing on our students of color and diverse populations, to inform instructional practices that transform beliefs, actions, and values for data-driven, relevant student learning. So here we're talking about looking at real-time data, especially of our students of color, to inform how we teach and what we teach. We also looked at Strategy 3 this year. We will collaborate with our diverse communities authentically and systemically to build collective ownership and accountability to achieve our mission and mission outcomes in accordance with our core values. And specifically, Strategy 3, Result 4, which is our community understands our mission and core values. This started way back before the school year even started, but board members will remember the kickoff to the beginning of the school year and the Mets expectations and all the things that went along with getting the year started and beginning to communicate the strategic plan. So, where are we today? Well, a few things have happened since September. First of all, we were originally going to start out with Strategy 1, Results 2 and 4 as separate groups, but we ended up combining them because there was so much overlap among the 2 results in Strategy 1 that we ended up creating one group to work on both results. They've been meeting regularly, and I can tell you that their discussions, along with the Strategy 3 discussions, have been authentic and adaptive discussions. So we came up with this little chart, courtesy of Corey Maslowski, the principal at PSI, I believe, to show what authentic and adaptive discussions look like. We go into this thinking, oh, we have work to do. And first we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this. And that's the way my lineal brain thinks. That's the left side. In reality, we've been doing what the right side looks like, because we've thrown out everything and started over. We're not being limited by past practice. And we are in the muck looking at everything from a different point of view. I think that is good. It's hard work. And the people involved have given their heart and soul and a lot of time. But it's the right way to go about this. If we're not just going to go through the motions and make a list of things and do them, we're going to really start over and look at things with fresh eyes. That's what we're doing. So the work of these teams has truly been authentic and adaptive. The core team is coming back together on April 28th, and they're going to spend a long day accomplishing a variety of things. First of all, we're going to go back and do some review of what is a strategic plan. And especially in St. Louis Park, we're heavily focused on closing the racial achievement gap. And what does the strategic plan have to do with that? How does that all fit together? We're going to go back and talk about the whys and hows and whats of the work that's going on. And I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. We're going to review and update our mission outcomes. The mission outcomes are what we are going to measure. How will we know if the work we're doing now is working? How will we know if we're successful? We need to know that, and that's some of the work that's going to happen on April 28th. The core team will get a progress report from the 3 teams that are working, actually the 2 teams that are working. They'll get the whole 9 yards of everything that's been happening this year, and they'll rate and evaluate that work. And then the core team will select new results to work on in 16-17. I want to go back to the why, how, and what and tell you from my point of view what that means. This is what the teams are working on right now. If someone were to ask me, why are we doing this work? To achieve our mission, of course. And in our case, for us to achieve our mission, we have to be able to close the racial achievement gap. That is the big task in front of us. That if we do that, for us to get to all, we talk about all, and all of our work in the strategic plan, we're always saying all students, all students, all students. And I'm truly committed to all students. For us to get to all, we have to close the racial achievement gap. The how is, I think, what we're developing. And right now, if someone were to ask me, how are you doing that? How are you trying to close the racial achievement gap? I would use the word bundling. Sometimes I use the word blending, trying to use them the same way. Taking racial equity work and combining it with best practice instruction, assessment, evaluation, alignment. By putting the two together, doing both at the same time, by bundling them, to me, that's the how. That's the strategy. That's our approach to doing this work. And the what is actually what we're doing. And when these groups present to the core team, they're going to have a long list of what we did this year. In the past, that might have been all we showed them. This is the what. This is everything we did this year. This time we're going to do it differently. We're going to explain the why, and we're going to explain the how, and then we're going to get to the what. So it's a new way of looking at it. I think it's the way to do this work. And I want to thank the teams that are involved in this, because they are working diligently to not just bring the what, but to explain the why and the how. So April 28th is a big day for us. We're going to have some practice presentations. The teams that are working and doing this work are going to prepare a practice presentation, which we're going to do internally to give them a little practice, so that when they show up on April 28th, it won't be the first time that they've presented, and the core team should learn a lot that day. So I will stop there and try to answer any questions that you have, and Sara will help me.
Bruce?
Rob, I'm interested in the answers to those questions, obviously. But the one thing I really applaud what you've done and what the staff has done, and that is you've answered questions with numbers. You've shown closing the achievement gap.
Mm-hmm.
You've shown our graduation rates. I just like, and it's, some of these things are difficult to quantify. I just like to see more of that as the presentations are shown. I think that's really important.
Thank you.
So when I saw the why, the how, and the what, it reminded me, and maybe this is where this is coming from, but this Simon Sinek talk, this TED talk, okay, that's where it came. So I've watched that a couple of times, both at a Children First meeting and at work. And so it was a really, I encourage people out there to look that up, a TED talk from Simon Sinek about the why, the how, and the what. Goes through really good examples about what Apple does, also a good example of what the Wright brothers do. So I think that's a really interesting approach. Really, from that talk, it really resonated with me. So if there are no further questions, thank you for the presentation.
You bet.
The next item, discussion item 4B, Sandy Salin, our Director of Business Services, will go through the 2015-16 budget amendments.
It's not going to be that exciting, but as you can see, it's we got revenues that were increasing for special education revenue for the current year. Taking a look at what the state has provided us at this point in time, we feel that there's a need to increase our budgets by $234,590 for the special education revenue. We do have an adjustment which is offsetting in the expenditures as well as the revenues for the West Metro District. We did have tuitioned revenue as well as tuition expenses going through for the downtown school and the fair school, but now since it's handled differently where the schools, Robbinsdale and Minneapolis own those schools now, we won't be seeing that tuition revenue going through as well as those expenses. So that's just a wash between those two. Expenditures, we do have some salary and benefits expenditure increases of $350,000. We did add 1.6 FTE, and I believe it was Aquila and Peter Hobart at the beginning of the year for class sizes. There's long-term leaves that factor into this, as well as some extra pay that factors into this, and this does include the benefits as well. Therefore, the total decrease to the unreserved fund balance is $115,410. We do have a literacy reserve out there. It's an assigned reserve that we had assigned with literacy aid that comes through every year, and this is unspent dollars on that revenue source that we intended to use for curriculum initiatives. And we did have some additional expenditures for curriculum initiatives, which supports the strategic plan in the amount of $361,583.85, which will be taken out of that assigned reserve. And with that, that's all I have for the budget amendments at this point, unless there's any questions.
Jim Benke.
I'm just curious, what we owe the extra revenue for. Did the legislature pass something, or?
No, that's actually, we used to get tuitioned revenue for tuition that we paid for the West Metro District. And they changed that setup for the downtown school and the fair school, where Minneapolis owns the downtown school now, and Robbinsdale owns the fair school. So they actually open enroll the students now into their school. We're not actually paying tuition for that anymore.
And maybe you've done it the same way before, but just I'm seeing it differently this time maybe, but for salary and benefits, you have a very round number there. So do you end up putting it higher so that when you add up your FTE or your leaves and all that, or did it?
I like to round numbers.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
when it comes to budgets, because this is still an estimate at this point, to the
Right.
best knowledge that we have at this point. So I round it up a little bit to make it a round number. Yes, good question.
Okay, thank you. All right, if there are no further questions or comments, we'll move on to the next item. Thank you, Sandy. And that is the item 4C, the Intermediate District 287 update. Superintendent Mets will be giving that.
Yes, board members, District 287 is asking all member districts to pass a memorandum of agreement that deals with the possible withdrawal of a member district from District 287 sometime before the end of June if possible. So I'm using tonight just as a way to introduce the topic and to begin gathering questions from board members. And I'm going to submit those questions to District 287. They are going to provide written responses to any questions that we have, whether they come up tonight or whether they come up later. You can just send me your questions, and I'll get them to District 287. They'll provide written responses. And if necessary, we'll send staff here to answer our questions. So we have time. We have until the end of June to either approve or not approve this memorandum of agreement. And this is the beginning, the information gathering and sharing phase. So let me give you a quick review. So a few years ago, a district, it was actually the Bloomington School District, left District 287. And when they left, there was a disagreement about whether they actually owed money to District 287 for the ongoing costs that District 287 was incurring while they were a member. And that went through a legal process. Then a year ago or so, Minnetonka School District informed District 287 that they were going to leave. And that brought up a variety of other similar topics to the Bloomington situation. When they leave, would they have any obligation to deal with ongoing costs of District 287? So we've now written a memorandum of agreement that describes what would happen if a district were to leave District 287. The business managers from across the district got together and they created a formula or a process that they thought was fair. And that process has been written into this memorandum of agreement. So I want to point out a few things. If you turn to page 3 of the memorandum, I'm starting with item 7. So item 7 on page 3 says, withdrawal by any member. Any member may withdraw, and it goes on to talk about the process of how to notify District 287 that a district plans to withdraw. Number 8 says priority for student placement. The way I read this, it basically says once you notify District 287 that you plan to withdraw, you won't get priority placement for students. This was an issue with both Bloomington and Minnetonka, that even after they said they were going to withdraw, their students were still getting placed in programming in front of other districts, and that was not well accepted. So this deals with that, saying once you tell us you're withdrawing, then if you still need to place students, you go to the back of the line. Number 9 talks about the financial consequences of withdrawing. And then in more detail, there are A, B, C, D, and E from number 9 that details how that will work. So this memorandum goes into quite depth of saying, if this were to ever happen again, if a district were to choose to withdraw in the future, then these new rules would apply, where in the past there really were no definite rules that applied. The last thing I'll say is my understanding is that this new agreement would not take effect unless every district in District 287, unless every member district approves it. So just us approving it doesn't mean it takes effect. It would take every single district to approve it for it to take effect. So again, this is a way of introducing the topic, giving you the information to look over, asking you to either tonight or later on send me your questions. I'll compile them all and get answers to them. I guess the last thing I will say before I turn it back to you, Chair Tatalovich, is Tammy Reynolds is here tonight. She is probably the most knowledgeable in our use of District 287 right now and the services we use and what they are, and so she's here to answer your questions as well.
Jim Yarosh.
Just a couple questions. One is, do we pay annually by student who uses the services? Or how does that work? What are our assets that we're contributing on an annual basis?
In special education, it's a tiered approach. So we buy center-based programming for students, where we've over the years built capacity here to serve almost every student that walks through our doors. So currently we have 22 students from our whole district that attend school at a District 287 program. That changes by month because some students are on work programs and things like that as well. And then we also hire itinerant staff to come in for low incidence, like a blind and visually impaired student. We don't have enough students who are blind in our district to hire staff or teachers to work with them, so we use their itinerant staff. We have some interpreters, a couple of students who are deaf, so it's where we don't have a large enough complex group of students.
So I get that. So, and we pay for it like with designated special ed funds, or are we paying for it out of just a service? They bill us, or?
Yeah, and it's like I get a monthly grid, so it changes by decimal points each month with regard to the students that they serve in their center-based program. And right now I'm going through my commitments for next year, and they won't hold us necessarily that exact number, but we need to give them a pretty close estimate of the number of students we'll be sending to those programs. Then with the itinerant staff, that's really based on student individual decisions, and so that's constantly changing. I'm needing to send little referral forms when we have a need or when we decrease a need. So we pay by student and we pay by service hour. And then in terms of general ed and gifted and talented, that's a whole different approach.
That's the other aspect of it too. We have other.
Special ed is the largest expenditure in terms of District 287 for us.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Just to follow up on that, Tammy, does the cost vary based on the program that the student is in at 287?
Very much so. Some of them are very tailored and rich in staff. There are students who need a one-to-one teacher sometimes. So that's certainly going to cost a lot more than students that can be part of a group of 15.
And then, just secondly, what is causing these districts to want to leave? I mean, one of the reasons that I always, 287 provides a lot of that economies of scale, where you don't always need it'd be too expensive to hire a teacher to service certain students. And so what is it what causing them to leave?
I will do my best, and then Tammy, you jump in. Do you want to go first? I think Bloomington was looking for another option.
And they joined the co-op just south of the river from them. So
Yep.
to them, that made geographical sense.
So there's some location there, which would be challenging for us. And I think Minnetonka, not speaking for Minnetonka, but feel like they're big enough where they can do this on their own.
I think that part is also true. I looked at our numbers. We have no more than 4 of our students in any one program, and even within, that's one program that has 4, the next is 3. So we don't have a conglomeration of any certain type of student that we're sending there. So, and again, that changes. We had a student who just graduated in December, so our count will go down to 22.1. And so it varies month by month. And then we've had students who moved in this year with the 287 placement already on their IEP. So our count is higher this year than it's ever been. We usually average around 15 students.
15 special ed students?
Correct.
Is that
we're
okay?
sending there as full-time students in a center-based 287 program. But right now we're at 22. And I checked, we had at least 3 or 4 that moved in this fall that I didn't even know were coming our way.
So I'm assuming since we're using 287 for these students, that it makes sense. Could you elaborate on that, both from an economic sense and from a teaching or supervision perspective?
Sure. Like I said when I started, we've really built capacity in our district. We cover every licensure area in all of our buildings related to our teaching staff, so we really can meet the needs. But we've had some students who have such extreme needs that they need a richer type of staffing. Their buildings are built with those sort of specific needs in mind. The infrastructure of actually even the school and the building can meet the needs of those students better than we can create here. So we pull out every trick out of the bag in terms of trying to keep our students here. We believe that we want them here, and this is where our students all belong. But when we reach a point where we can no longer safely serve a student, we rely upon 287 for that.
And have we ever looked into the other co-ops?
Yes, they're really far away. In fact, like a student from going to school from St. Louis Park down to Lakeville or to White Bear Lake, excuse me, would be a really long ride for those students every day. And I think the transportation aside would tip that scale a little bit. We're very centrally located amongst all of the District 287 programs. So for us, that part, the furthest we go is Richfield or Osseo.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comment? Go ahead, Nancy.
Yeah, I'll just say I'm our liaison to the 287 board, and I think we've been a member for quite a long time. And one of the concerns in dealing with the litigation that arose out of Bloomington's withdrawal, because there was a disagreement about how to calculate the costs when they left, which led people to say, let's work out an agreement that everybody can live with, because we don't want to be, nobody wants to be the last district standing, as it were. So the desire was to work out an agreement that all the current districts would be okay with and thought was fair. And I know that Sandy and the business administrators got together, and you believe, Sandy, that the formula that is in this agreement is a fair way to allocate any obligations at the end of the day if a district leaves?
Absolutely. I don't have the details in front of me, of course, but we had lengthy conversations throughout these last, 2 years or so since Bloomington pulled out regarding how things were allocated in that process, as well as how to make it a fair assessment for future. And all the business managers went through a lot of conversations and feel that looking at all the assets and the liabilities, we feel that this is a fair allocation.
And the other thing I would say is that some of the intermediate districts are acting, even though I think Rob said we have till June, a lot of folks are bringing this to their boards now. I think Robbinsdale's already approved it. I don't know about the other districts, but it's in conversation in the various boards now.
You don't sense, I mean, kind of, I don't want to make I don't think it's a proper parallel, but having talked about WEMAP and the districts there, I mean, do we see more? I mean, I think it's good. I think the policy in front of us is good, and I think some of our questions are a little broader, maybe, of just what's going on there. Is there a concern that some districts can be the last standing? Are we getting our bang for the buck? Those kinds of things. I mean, they're totally separate issues. or maybe not, or what's your sense?
I thought that, I mean, I was thinking the same way on this, and thinking in terms of the benefits that Tammy spoke to versus we've got some leverage too, because 287 doesn't want us to leave, and the language in here, just making sure that it makes sense that we're not, if we leave, that we're not paying for a building in 2075 that's, you know, we're paying for the boiler on it because we signed this sort of agreement. So that was my concern when I was looking at this, was kind of weighing the cost and the benefit of it. And I did think a lot about WEMAP and how that's similar in some respects. All right. Anybody else? So the next step on this, Rob, is working through with the remainder of the school year?
I would appreciate it if board members had questions, concerns, thoughts, send them my way. I'll compile a list and supply them to all of you. But I'll also send them to District 287 and get answers and bring those back. And we'll just keep working on it. If we need someone from District 287 to come here, they volunteered to do that, to answer questions directly as well. And then I'll keep tabs on what other districts are doing. I believe also that Robbinsdale has already passed this, and other districts are doing the exact same thing we are now. They're beginning to study it.
Thank you. Next item is discussion item 4D, policy development, the second reading of policy 214, out-of-state travel for school board members, and policy 412, expense reimbursement. Find that on my packet here. Any comments or questions on either of these policies? Hearing none. This is going to come up on our action agenda. Like I said, this was a second reading, so we did see these previously. So let's move along to the first reading of policy 419, tobacco-free environments. Cindy Bennett will be speaking to this one, at least initially.
Thank you, Chair Tatalovich. Policy 419, tobacco-free environment, was last revised on June 2014. There are just a couple corrections, actually. It's identically the same to MSBA, what I put in your packet. There is a correction on 2B. I think I have that list in front of you, Chair Tatalovich. The word work was misspelled. Then when you go to 4B, no, maybe it was 2A. 4B, a violation of this policy, the word not was omitted. So I put that in red on the revision that was in front of you tonight. That's what needs to be considered for the first reading. So 4B exceptions, a violation of this policy does not occur. Other than that, everything is the same as it was the last time it was brought before you in 2014.
Any comments or questions? Nancy?
Cindy, I would just, and the board, I would have you take a look at 4A. The first sentence of that, apparently we didn't pick it up last time we voted on it, but it has a double negative, which then negates the meaning of the sentence. So we need to do an edit there. If you see what I'm pointing out, it says, "It shall not be a violation of this policy does not occur." I mean, that's not what we mean, so we need to fix it.
Did you say 2A or 2B? Or
I said 4A.
Oh, 4A, okay.
And maybe you can just check the MSBA and see what it's supposed to be by the time it comes back to us.
I think it should just say a violation of this policy does not occur, and then it'll be consistent with how B would read, so.
Perfect.
Follow that, Cindy, so you'd strike out.
I do, and I bet you 2 cents I was supposed to strike that out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Any other comments or questions on 419? All right, let's move along to the action agenda. So for policy development, policy 214, out-of-state travel, school board, and policy 412, expense reimbursement, it is recommended that the school board approve the second reading of policy 214, out-of-state travel, and 412, expense reimbursement as presented. Do I hear a motion? Moved by Bruce, seconded by Ken. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes 7-0. Next item is approval of the 2015-16 budget amendments. It is recommended the school board approve the 2015-16 budget amendments as presented. Do I hear a motion? Moved by Karen.
Second.
Second by Jim Yarosh. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Budget amendments pass 7-0. Action agenda 5C, approval of Community Education Advisory Council reappointments. It is recommended that the school board approve Deb Danielson for the local business category and Kaylee Hanson-Mahoney youth category to the Community Education Advisory Council, SEAC, for the term that will expire in July of 2017. Do I hear a motion on that?
So moved.
I'll give that to Jim Benke, second.
Second.
Ken with the seconds. Any discussion?
Oh, I'm skipping mics tonight, I don't know why. I'd just like to mention that both of those people are really excellent people, and to have them do this for us is great. And I might also mention that in the youth category, Kaylee was on the strategic planning group this time on the core team, and just outstanding young woman, now at the high school, I believe. Yep. But she was a junior high student when she was on the core team and made wonderful contributions. So both Debbie and Kaylee will be great additions here, and great to continue.
Thank you, Bruce. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the reappointments of Deb Danielson and Kaylee Hanson-Mahoney to SEAC say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes 7-0. We are up to communications and transmittals. Let's start with Jim Benke over here.
Well, I was just going to say, on my short time on the school board, I've had more people approach me this last week than all the other weeks combined. Once they heard that we are, considering a gender policy, so I'll just say, I welcome any conversation on the subject, and I'm sure all of the rest of the school board does too.
Thank you, Jim. Nancy had something?
Yeah, I was going to just say that just before our school board meeting, Joe and I interviewed 2 people who applied to be the school board appointments to 2 city commissions, and Joe and I will be recommending both of them when it comes up on our agenda, but I wanted to just Joe's request, comment on them now. One is Robert Griggs, who's applied to be appointed to the Human Rights Commission, and he has been a resident of St. Louis Park since 1979. He's recently retired as an ordained UCC minister. He has other volunteer experience. 2 of his kids graduated from the park, one in 1982 and one in 1987. So the bench in this community is so deep and so rich, and he's one of these rich people we'll be really fortunate to have representing us on the Human Rights Commission, should you agree with our recommendation. And the other person was Tiffany Hoffman, who applied to be on for the Park and Rec Commission. As Joe said, she's really overqualified, and aren't we lucky to have her? She has an undergraduate and a graduate degree in, is it kinesiology? I don't know. Yeah, you got it. And she's works at the U, working with their renting of facilities. She's worked for Hopkins, managing the rental of their gym, so she knows the practicality, and she knows the knowledge, and she has the skills, and we're just going to be so fortunate to have her willing to contribute to the community on our behalf on the Park and Rec Commission.
And Robert went to Yale undergraduate and Harvard Divinity School, so so no slouch there either. Yeah, so I totally agree with Nancy. 2 great applicants, and we should say both. I'll speak for the city, although I don't speak for the city, and for the school board, although I don't speak for the entire school board. In saying, if you're applying to a board or commission, you do not need to have this level of background. Just a passion for the community and an interest in the subject. Ken.
Karen, I don't want to steal any of your thunder. Yes. You going to do it? Oh, okay. So, as many of you know, it's my passion to cook. And next weekend, that is February 20th, Aquila is going to have their Aquila Bee, or their pancake breakfast fundraiser again. And I will be in the kitchen, and all of the board members would love to see you show up and participate, or just come and mingle with folks and eat some flapjacks. So that's where we'll be. I do believe it starts at 8 o'clock, ends at 11, and it's a nominal fee, but you can donate however much you would like, because it goes to a great cause. And as many pancakes as you like.
Thank you, Ken. Bruce or Karen, whoever.
I just want to mention the last weekend in February, from Thursday through Sunday, will be the choir gala. This will be Guys and Dolls this year, and if you've never seen it, it is wonderful. If you saw the movie, or in fact you ought to get the movie, see Frank Sinatra, because our kids are just as good as Frank Sinatra any day. But the Guys and Dolls will be Thursday, Friday, and Saturday evenings at 7 o'clock. And Sunday, the matinee is at 2. And it's just a wonderful show, and I think everybody should come. We should fill that auditorium for four evenings and one matinee. It's a great opportunity to see our kids in action, and they do such a great job. So please, everybody, try to come, and that's Guys and Dolls, last weekend in February.
Upcoming on Thursday, March 3rd, is the Children First Champions Breakfast, starting at 7 a.m. And you do need to register for that. It's at the Doubletree Hilton. It is a fundraiser, but there's also a great learning opportunity. From a small seed, a mighty trunk may grow. And we do know that Tom Friedman is going to be part of it in a video capacity. I also wanted to mention the Aquila Imagination Inventors Fair on Thursday, February 18th at 6 p.m. And then just the last thing, I was so impressed with, we talk about community collaboration and opportunity. It became clear that our girls hockey program was struggling, and Andy Ewald sought out an option and combined with Hopkins, and I was really impressed with their senior night at the St. Louis Park Rec Center. They had that be the home game recognizing the seniors. They recognized the Hopkins seniors and the Park seniors, and really have done an impressive job of blending the two programs so that both schools have an opportunity to continue play. So I'm happy that we embrace collaboration, and this one is a particularly successful example of it. And they had a pretty decent record, too.
Thanks, Karen. I had one item, and it's an action item for Cindy. So every year we have listening sessions where a couple board members go to a school or a neighborhood gathering place and get to talk about, whatever item they want to talk about. We've talked about, I know I've showed up and we've talked about nutrition and community gardens and immersion, and I think we've heard many different topics, and it's just a great exchange normally. What's that? Freight rail. Oh, freight rail. I forgot it. So soon I forget freight rail. So it's actually a great opportunity for the community to talk with us. At open forum, we get to hear, but we don't get to have kind of the intimate discussion and really get into things. So listening sessions are very important. So Cindy, if you could just send all of us an email, and we can just start the ball rolling in terms of coordinating, and maybe we do like we've done before, where we have like one a month, March, April, May, or something like that. But if you would just kind of send something out to us. And
Sure, you're looking at different sites each time?
yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other communications and transmittals? All right. Now it's time for adjournment. Anybody want to make that motion? Nancy with the motion, Bruce with the second. Any discussion? No. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned 7:00.